Thank you very much. It's really weird to have people care what I say. That's been a new thing for me, actually. And really, I think the reason why people are paying so much attention to my blog and the reason why people like Rachel Maddow and stuff are covering us so much is because Michigan really is at the epicenter right now. We're sort of at the crosshairs or the bullseye of the attack on the middle class. And, you know, what happens in Michigan in so many ways, economically and in other ways, but also with the attack on the middle class, is something that has implications across the country. And we know this because even now, Indiana, just a couple of weeks ago, their Senate passed an emergency manager law, or passed a bill that now goes to the House. So what's happening here is now starting to spread, and we really need to, you know, it's on us to be the bulwark against that, because, you know, we're the ones who are at the center of it. It's interesting because the people who are in power in Michigan right now, in Lansing, you know, they came into power on this sort of smaller government, lower taxes mantra, and really swept the place in 2010. As you know, they have the House, the Senate, the Governor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, the Supreme Court, the Secretary of State. They have everything. And yet, the budget that they passed last year raises taxes on 51% of the people in Michigan. And it is inordinately impacting people at the lower economic end of the economic scale, and really benefits the people up at the 1% and the 0.1% and beyond. And they're using that to fund a tax break, 86% tax break for corporations. So, you know, you can't square that, you know, and these are the questions we need to be asking the people who are making our laws. There are a lot of attacks on the middle class right now in Michigan, and the one, I mean, I've written about all of these, but the one that really gets my heart pumping the most is how we're treating our teachers. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'd like to read something that I wrote actually back in July. Are there any teachers here? All right. Let me ask you this. Has anybody here ever had a teacher that inspired them to be a better person? Yeah, I think so. I think we all have. All right, how we doing? Good? So I wrote this back in July, and what happened since July into now is really just made it all that more poignant to me. In any rational society, teachers are not considered costs. They're considered assets, something to be valued, something to be rewarded. The Republicans have done an amazingly effective job of turning the public's perception from seeing teachers as a valuable asset to seeing them as parasitic leeches on the jugular vein of society. Rather than valuing them for the important role that they play in our society, that of educating our children, they are now coming to be viewed as a cost, something to be cut when times get hard. We have cut their pay, increased the amount they pay for their health care, reduced their retirement benefits, and make it nearly impossible for them to bargain on their own behalf. And yet we expect them to effectively educate our children. We do this to help pay for massive tax cuts for businesses. And then we expect them to come to work each day, stand in front of the next generation of leaders and scientists and parents and doctors and trash collectors, and make them ready for their place in society. Meanwhile, we scream collectively that our schools are failing our children. I'm not sure how doing all of these things, by doing all these things that we are doing to our teachers, it constitutes making our schools better, to quote House Speaker Jace Bolger. What I do know is that a society that devalues its educators is destined to slowly circle the drain until it glugs down into an empty, fetid tub of ignorance and stupidity. It's not possible for a society to excel or to compete on the world stage when its children are educated by people that are treated as if they are parasites. We're at a turning point in society with regard to the education of our children. And what is happening in Michigan and Wisconsin and elsewhere to our teachers is going to be our nation's future unless we act soon. We cannot continue to cast teachers as a cost to be cut whenever possible. We must turn around our country's way of thinking about our educators and their value to society. Because if we don't, we will become a nation of uneducated fools. And when that happens, our destiny will be controlled by the countries that do value education, not by us. So, how does that relate to the Occupy movement? I just brought on a new blogger at Eclectablog. He's a Twitter phenomenon called LOLGOP. Has anybody ever heard of this guy? He's an amazing guy. I'm really excited about him. The guy's got like 43,000 Twitter followers, and he's just an incredibly bright guy. But he wrote a piece this week called how Occupy has changed the conversation. And it's a good piece, and I really commend your attention to it, because he talks in there about how, President Obama comes from a background of building coalitions and working together with people, and anybody that expected him to do other than that really didn't pay attention to what he was saying and what he's written and stuff. But if you look at what's happening right now in terms of the pushback against the Republicans that are running for president right now, people are talking about Mitt Romney's income. They're talking about how much money he makes. They're talking about how he's part of the 0.001%. And that wouldn't have happened with just President Obama running for president, because he's not that kind of a person. He doesn't attack people that way. But because the Occupy movement has changed the conversation, people are talking about that, so it's very important. I come from a background of organizing and of getting people to vote. And I guess my message to Occupy, both here in Traverse City and across the state and across the country, is that, I know you want to stay bipartisan and I know you want to stay out of politics, but you can't. You have to be involved in what's going on in our state capitals, in our U.S. Capitol, because it's the laws of the land that allow these things to happen. And unless we change those laws, they will continue to happen, because we know that the 1% and the corporations who are out to make money will go right up to the edge of what's legal, and sometimes they'll go a little over that. And unless we start pulling back, then we're not going to affect change effectively. So things like move to amend is a great way, to do that. I really commend their attention. But it also comes back to the local level, because unless we start filling the pipeline with good, progressive, thoughtful representatives who represent our views, then we're not going to have people representing our views. And the people that are, except for like CEO governors that come out of nowhere and suddenly take over the state, most of the politicians that are making laws for us in this state and this country started out as county commissioners. They started out as township supervisors. They worked their way up. That's how you do it. It's just like in a job. You work your way up. And so we've got to start working for people that represent our views at the local level. So I really want to make sure that everybody in this room and everybody across the state, everybody across the country is finding somebody or some group that's representing what they're doing, and that you're getting involved in it. You're not staying home, and you're not, sitting on the couch as somebody said before. That you're getting out and you're promoting the people that represent your views, because it's so important. I guess I just want to finish up with something that I'm going to quote a little bit of the piece that my co-blogger wrote. He said, "The debt ceiling crisis left many wondering how President Obama could fight the entrenched powers that need to be called out. Then came Occupy Wall Street. Many Democrats resist identifying with the Occupy movement because it was definitely not pro-Obama. I didn't care whom they were for, honestly. What mattered was whom they were against. Those who are gaming the system to make playing with money far more important to our economy than work. The president, as is his nature, didn't focus on the opposition of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Instead, he seized the opportunity to remind America whom he is for, the working people, people without health care, people that want to send their kids to college, kids who want to grow up in a world where they are free to love whomever they please. I thank the collective intelligence of the American people that the Occupy movement came along when it did to focus America on the right things, including the two most important words in the English language, income equality." I think that's right. That's why I brought this guy on my blog. He's great. So, get involved. I don't care if it's OFA or DFA or, your local dog catcher's election, whatever it is. Find somebody who's representing your views and get that person into a position where they can start, making change for us, because it's really that important. And I guess I would just say, when we're talking about what we want to do, we're not trying to take our country back. We're trying to take it forward.